So I'm delighted to be joined this morning by a panel of MECB graduates and alumni, whom I will introduce in a moment. It's worth noting that in September 2021, that'll mark the 20th anniversary of this program. So there are 2 decades and hundreds of MECB graduates and alumni wandering around in the wider world out there. Now, in assembling today's panel, we didn't quite go back that far. I myself graduated from MECB in 2009. And so our panel are within the last decade, okay? So in chronological order of graduation, I'll introduce our panel. We've got Sean Donnelly, who is a senior research analyst at eConsultancy, and Sean graduated in 2010, I think a year after me. We've Roisin Johnson, digital insights analyst, Scion Group, and Roisin, I think you graduated in 2014. Yeah. Andre, founder and CEO, Happy Scribe, you graduated 2017, and Neve, who is a teaching assistant here in the business school on the program with me. I graduated last year, so you're the freshest of the bunch, Neve, 2020. So thanks to each and every one of you for coming on today. So just to get the conversation going, I just thought, so if you think back to your experience on the program, you probably got to work with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, different motivations for doing the course, different ambitions and that kind of thing. So I just thought maybe we'll go through each of you, but maybe starting with you, Sean, if I could ask you for yourself, your own background before coming onto the program, why you chose to do the MSc in e-commerce, and did you have any idea of what role or sector maybe that you wanted to go into after graduation?
Hey, David, and good morning, everybody. My background prior to doing my master's in DCU was I actually did my undergrad in DCU in business and languages. And then I commenced a career in financial services. I worked initially in funds administration and then in corporate banking. And around 2007, if anybody remembers credit crunch time as opposed to crash time, I decided to leave and go traveling around the world with my girlfriend, now wife. And when I came back to Ireland, Ireland was a very different place. Certainly there were no jobs going in the bank if there was recruitment freezes, but who wanted to work in a bank then anyway? People didn't like banks. So I had actually had my eye on the Masters in e-commerce for a few years because it was a space that I was really interested in. And in terms of doing my research, it looked like the most sort of robust e-commerce program there was out there. So, so when I returned from traveling, I signed up to do the master's program there, and I haven't looked back since.
All right, very good. Roisin, what's your story?
I also did business and languages in DCU. So I did business and Japanese, and I graduated 2013. So I had a bit of different. I went directly in to the e-commerce masters when I finished. I mostly did it because I had like an e-commerce module in my final year of my international business degree. So kind of I really liked it as a subject, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I wanted to postpone adult life for another year. So I just took the masters because it was the subject I was the most interested in. So why not do a whole masters on it?
Right, right. And did you have any ambitions on or ideas of where you wanted to go afterwards?
No, I had a bunch of ideas because obviously the module was one module, like an hour a week or something. So we were only getting basically like a flavor of what was like going to happen. So when I wanted to join, we were learning about all the interesting technologies, all the interesting like websites, and it was all kind of brand new to me at that point. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but I wanted to go into that kind of space. And I didn't know what, like, I didn't even know my type of role would exist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, so similar. So I also did international business and languages. So that's 3 of us, and Roisin, you and I both did Japanese. Yeah. So, and I also had that module in 4th year too. And so I think we have a shared experience there. Andre, how about you?
So myself, I was studying business did my undergrad in business in Paris before, and started traveling and did some internships abroad. And I was like, I don't want to go back to France. So like that was my criteria number one, and I wanted to stay in Ireland. And after this, initially I wanted to work as a product manager for a tech startup, or like tech companies, and coming from a business background, what was crucial was to have a very deep understanding of all the technologies in place, because that's what you do, like being in touch with engineers and making sure that everything flow. And so for me that was like the main decision making. I was like, okay, this master looked like I'm gonna dive deeper into technical knowledge, and dive deeper as well on the business side, but from the technical point of view, technical perspective, and
Sure.
that's what made me decide of this master. Yeah.
Okay, and did you have so product management, I think, was your focus, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And then lastly, Neve.
Yeah, so I did Irish and Business in DCU, so another language course. So I don't know what's in the water with all of us doing language courses in business and going into e-commerce. But yeah, so I did Irish and Business, and in my fourth year as well, we did a module on e-commerce,
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. But I didn't go straight into the e-commerce after my undergraduate. I decided to take the year off and work in insurance, to really find out more about e-commerce. And at my graduation, one of the girls that was in my Irish and Business course was doing e-commerce, and she was able to tell me more about what it was like, and that it's very technical sided, but also getting in the business as well. And from then I applied straight away on the pack, and I was offered it, and it was a great experience.
Great. Okay. So insurance industry, an industry that's ripe for digital disruption, but that's probably a conversation for another day. So I'm going to ask you, okay, you've gone down memory lane a little bit, but if you could look back at coming out of graduation, and so Roisin, if I just stay with you for a moment, how are you able to apply what you've learned on the role on the course to your role in DCU? So you're going into sort of academia as one area where you can go after graduation.
I think it was Neve, is it?
Oh, sorry, Neve. Beg your pardon. Sorry, Neve. I beg your pardon.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Sorry, just how you were able to apply the program or what you've learned on the course to your role in
especially as a teaching assistant, I'm involved in some of the same modules that I was only a student in 12 months ago. So I've been helping out in the digital business module and the innovation one with Teresa, and that's where the MECB are mostly associated nowadays. But prior to that, MECB, which is e-commerce, were with Next Generation Management, which is a self-learning course, and where individuals go and upskill in 4 main areas, with one of them being digital. And in that, I'm helping the non-technical students and applying my HTML and CSS languages by giving them a workshop in that. But I'm also very empathetic to the students, so I'm like
Right.
very middleman between the lecturer and
Sure.
the students. So
you have to play mommy at times, do you?
Yes, I'm mommy.
Big sister. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Sean, you've a similar journey in the sense that, and I suppose like myself and Neve, we stayed within the DCU ecosystem after graduation. So personally, I found it hard to reach escape velocity. But Sean, how did you apply MECB after your graduation?
Thanks, David. So I spent 5 years working in DCU after graduation, and I had the pleasure of working with David as well for a few years. And in terms of how I applied MECB post-graduation in DCU and beyond, I'd say that, so Niamh used some words like she talked about sort of technical side, she talked about innovation, she talked about digital business. And I think one of the great things that MECB equipped me with was kind of the foundations of lots of different subjects, because you're covering the business side of things and you're covering the technical side of things. And that equips you certainly with the vocabulary to be able to communicate with lots of different stakeholders. Because when you go out into industry, you know, a lot of businesses now work with or use cross-functional teams. So you might find yourself in a team with a product manager, as Andre said, a project manager, developers, data scientists, and so on. And MECB kind of has such a broad, will equip you with plenty of knowledge that you'll be able to communicate with all of those people very effectively. And that's something that still stands to me now, even 10 years later.
Sure. It's that bridging the gap in the marriage of business and technical. Yeah. So Roisin, and I mean you this time, what about you? So where did you end up where did you go after graduation, and how did you apply what you learned on the course?
I went to Dublin Airport. So I applied for the management graduate program in Dublin Airport, and I was in the security team. So I was dealing with, when I entered, it was when we were putting in those new lanes in Terminal 1 and the explosive trace detection. And part of my graduate role was to be able to explain like the technologies to like stakeholders who've been working at the airport for like 30 years and have no idea about technology, and explain like why it works and how it helps. And then kind of test the systems in terms of like throughput and which one was better to use, because we couldn't pick which one, because obviously it's like semi-government agency. You can't pick a company. You had to go through these processes. So we had to test a bunch of different ones.
Yeah.
We had to decide which one was the best one for us in terms of cost and in terms of throughput.
Sure. Okay. So it's sort of like a business analyst role in a sense. So you're applying process engineering and.
Yeah, it was. They wouldn't have that terminology, but yeah, similar. So I think we did like a business process innovation kind of module. So kind of going towards that stream for a bit.
Right.
And then when I was in there, a lot of people didn't really do well with data. So when a new data analyst came in, I kind of shadowed her for a bit. And when we were dealing with throughputs and stuff like that, I started doing deep dives and like, why did our times go over 30 minutes? So did our time go over 30 minutes? Was it the throughput? Was it the staffing? Was it the, like, basically kind of like the role I do now, but at the airport.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Fascinating. Andre, you have a slightly different path in that you you took the high risk entrepreneurial journey. So can you talk a little bit about that and how maybe you applied what you learned in MECB to that?
Well, first thing, it all started with NGM at the time, because I was doing some qualitative research as a pod, and I had to transcribe interviews, and I was like, yeah, I was like, this is not gonna happen. So yeah, and we basically started Happy Scribe during our master degree. So my flatmate was in the computing school, doing in the Insight Center, doing AI stuff, and we started basically building Happy Scribe to initially solve my problem, and which will then become like something much bigger that is solving the problem of thousands of people. But I'd say, like, I think everyone will agree with me that MECB is a really intense master. And I think this is what is helping me right now. I think like it prepared me for the job in some ways, because you in MECB, what's super amazing about this master is that you are looking at so many subjects at the same time. It can be, I remember, like in the medical sector, in the IT, in the business process, and then you jump on like social entrepreneurship, and you get interest, like you develop interest in so many things. And that really prepared me to what I'm doing right now, because I basically jump in between like 30 subjects every day.
Sure.
And yeah.
Okay, interesting. So we'll wrap up soon. So just Andre, on that, what would be advice that you would give to somebody, whether they're thinking about MECB or whether they've committed to it and are ready to start?
Like go full in. I think enjoy the journey. I think it's more about the journey than the actual like grade at the end. You're gonna meet so many people. There is so many activities that you can do. Just embrace them. Do as much as you can. Even if you feel a bit overwhelmed sometimes. Yeah, for me, you know, like this whole Happy Scribe thing started from MECB. We would have never started this company without this master, just because we got it helped me like develop a lot of different interests, and diving a bit more each time into, okay, there is transcription, but what is actually transcription, and what people are using transcription, and develop kind of a thought process of always trying to research a bit more what you're actually doing. And yeah, so just enjoy it.
Okay.
And for the one that have still some doubts, just go for it.
Go for it. Okay, words to live by. Niamh, could I ask you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Andre. You need to have fun. You have to be very committed to this master's program. It is a level up to your undergraduate. It is a little bit more intense, but don't be fearful of it. The best advice I could say is, I know many of us would have, you know, part-time jobs and going into your undergraduate and then master's degree. And I would say you could keep it on, but you need to prioritize the master's, because if you prioritize your job instead of the master's, you will fall behind, I feel.
Okay, right. Yeah, that's very good advice. Yeah. Roisin, if I could ask you the same.
Like Sean said earlier, like the main part is the communication between the technology and the business. Like you have no idea how many people in like different industries who've been there for a very long time still have no idea of technology, and still need someone to be able to like translate. So I suppose that could be why we all went from the language to the e-commerce. Right. It's basically a translation of like technology to business. It's translating something that people don't understand to something that they do understand. About the communication. So understanding both is important. So the business and the technology, and how to translate one to the other.
Right. And Sean, finally, if I could end with you on that same question.
I think Andre and Niamh said something interesting. They talked about it being quite intense, and it is. So if you're coming, and I say that in a positive way, so if you're coming through from undergrad, you know, let's call it a spade a shovel. There are some undergrad modules that you can turn up to the class, and then in the last few weeks before the exam, you can pull it together. Yeah. However, the Master's in E-commerce is very applied. I'm not too sure if there are even any written exams in it anymore. No. And which means you need to bring a level of awareness and commitment for the entire program. And so when it comes to that idea of part-time jobs, lots of people that did the program with me had part-time jobs, but as Niamh said, you do need to commit to sort of ongoing learning as you go through the program. And there's something else I was going to add to that, just in case that seems like I'm suggesting putting anybody off. There's one way to think about it. A former colleague of mine said, look, it's 3 semesters that are 12 weeks long. And when you break it down that way, it's not a year of intensity and working really hard. It's 12 weeks and 12 weeks and 12 weeks. And there's a couple of weeks off in between. And you've got a reading week in the semesters and stuff as well. So with that in mind, you know, it's very manageable.
Okay, tell that to the current cohort. Yeah.
I feel like I'm that person at the Oscars that plays the music.
You're well. So look, we'll obviously we'll leave it there. But so Caroline has rudely interrupted us. Caroline,
sorry about that.
No, you're fine. If I may, so I'll say thanks a lot to the panel here. Wonderful insights, and thank you for sharing that with us. Caroline, if I may, can I just address 2 points on something that came up earlier when you were...
Yeah, and also, David, one of the reasons that I popped in, I'll take myself back off camera in a sec. There is actually just one question there in the Q&A for Andre about how Andre was assisted in starting up Happy Scribe. So that's actually my reason for popping my face on there. Sure that's caught. I'm going to go back off camera now for a sec, okay?
Okay, great. So do you want to actually take that, Andre?
Yeah. I mean, DCU has been like outstanding in helping us in the early days. I was surprised because I was not expecting it. We've had, you know, as soon as we started, we first got integrated into like the DCU accelerator. I'm not sure if it's still there, like Ryan Academy. I think it's
yeah, it's
it is.
It's still there. Yeah.
Okay, so we got into UStart. All my teacher were just like taking 101 with me, office hours, to like say, okay, how can we help? How can we help you develop this in terms of marketing, of business, of like technology? The Insight Center got involved. We just had like, I mean, the support they gave us, like free office space. It was the communication office became our PR department, and yeah, like it was just really nice, and we had like an amazing support from DCU.
Okay, great, thank you. So just 2 things that came up earlier when Caroline was talking. Somebody asked about the difference between the MSc in e-commerce and the MSc in digital marketing. So while it's true that there are some shared modules across the programs, now Dr. Pierangelo Rosati, who's the chair of MSc in digital marketing, will be on later, so you can get more about that. But digital marketing degree is obviously slightly more marketing focused, right? So marketing strategy, advertising, digital advertising, and communications. So that's more focused that way. Where MECB is slightly different. There's now more of a focus on information risk, security, data governance. There's business analysis, and so digital entrepreneurship. So it's kind of, you know, if I was to have a demarcation line between the 2 programs, it'd be somewhere along there. If there's information, if people have questions, we did record information webinars back in January or February. So the links, I think, were shared in the chat. So if anyone, I would encourage you to go back or look at the program pages. I think those webinars are embedded in the pages. Just one other thing, and that's on sort of industry engagement and experience. So while the practicum is your capstone project, and it's kind of your summer module in a sense, so you're given a real client and to work with, embedded throughout the modules and the assignments on the modules is industry engagement. So whether it's search engine optimization projects, digital audits, and digital sales and marketing plans, you work with clients on those projects. So it's not just the practicum where you get to work with a client, it's actually embedded throughout the program. So I just thought I'd mention that. So we've come to the end. I want to thank all of you, Niamh, Roisin, Sean, and Andre.